mission is to really try and inspire people to explore and experience the sports, right? So inspire, explore, experience. And that sits at the core of the organization in terms of the people, in terms of the mission and just what we're doing overall. And we tend to look through that lens overall. And then in the last 3 to 5 years, we've also brought in a massive sustainability part, which I'll talk about a little bit later on.
Yep.
But how did it come to life? Literally, I set the business.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting World podcast. And today I'm here with Alistair Gosling. And Alistair, first of all, thanks for taking the time. How's everything going these days?
Yeah, really well, thank you. Yeah, we just been to Portugal. In fact, got back late last night, and we're looking at some opportunities over there, and managed to get to Nazaré and managed to get towed into a couple of waves in Nazaré. Very small compared to the size that's normally there, but yeah, absolutely amazing. So no, going really well, thank you.
They're known for their massive waves down there. So
yes. Normally Nazaré is known for the 100-foot whatever levels and the real pros, but yeah, we had an amazing experience where we connected with the guys on the ground in Nazaré who run. I mean, they've got like 35 jet skis and they run all the kit and all the boards. And yeah, it was very small, but we still managed to get out and yeah, managed to catch a couple of waves, which on a tow-in basis, which was amazing. It has to be said, but very small.
Well, I'm sure those small waves are pretty big for the normal person, nonetheless.
It was definitely scary that in terms of yeah. Anyway, I can't imagine the levels that the guys are working at when it's going full tilt. But yeah, all good.
It really puts things in perspective, right? How talented they are. You know, when they have those kind of waves. You know, involved.
Yeah, I mean, how talented, how fearless, and also the power of nature and that side of things. Just yeah, it's just incredible. I mean, like really utterly incredible. So yeah, it was great. Very, very cool.
Well, I mean, like, we're not here to talk about waves. We're here to talk about you and your background. So why don't we kind of jump right into it? And why don't you talk a little bit about, you know, how your journey in the sport industry began? Take us a little bit, you know, where this passion came from.
Yeah, no worries. So always passionate about the outdoors. So grew up actually outside of London in the UK, but always loved the ocean and always loved the mountains. And really had that passion from an early age. And really when I left school, I didn't go to university. I did a number of jobs. I worked in actually in the Bahamas on marine biology for a couple of years, and then came back and was like, right, I want to set something up. I want to do something. And I was 24 at the time, and I didn't want to go get a job. And so read a couple of books there's a legendary guy called Mark McCormack who used to run IMG and TWI.
Right.
Sadly, he's now passed away, but looked at him and thought we could do that. We could do that, but in the adventure and extreme and action sports space. And so that was really the seed of it. So it came from, number one, a passion for the sports and wanting to build a career between the sports and outdoor adventure and that side of things with business and mixing those two together. And almost the kind of viewpoint, if I can do that, then I never have to work, really. I mean, you do work, but it's, you know, it's slightly different.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, that's the beauty of sports, right? It's is it really work when you work with something you're passionate about?
It's that, yeah, exactly. Sometimes it is, but 90%, 95% of the time it isn't. So it's
you have like those moments, right? Where you just realize how lucky you really are.
Totally.
Like you being in Portugal with your nice waves, you know, yesterday, you know.
Absolutely.
They just don't happen to most people.
Yeah, exactly that. It's mixing that lifestyle with the other parts. So yeah, very cool.
Right. So let's talk a little about obviously, Extreme International, you're the founder and CEO. So how did the company, come to life? A little bit about the key purpose behind it. I guess you kind of, a little bit about the top rows, but go a little bit more deeper into, actually making it a reality, a little bit behind a key purpose behind it and what you
Yeah,
want to accomplish.
no worries. I mean, listen, I'll start with the vision and the mission and the
Yeah.
purpose. I mean, our vision overall is to try and drive positive change through extreme and action and adventure sports. So
Right.
anything we look at, we want to try and drive health, fitness, well-being, job creation, tourism, all of those kind of good things. So anything we kind of look at, we will look at it through that lens. And then our mission is to really try and inspire people to explore and experience the sports, right? So inspire, explore, experience. And that sits at the core of the organization in terms of the people, in terms of the mission and just what we're doing overall. And we tend to look through that lens overall. And then in the last 3 to 5 years, we've also brought in a massive sustainability part, which I'll talk about a little bit later on.
Yep.
But how did it come to life? Literally, I set the business up age 24. We were originally into the TV distribution and production space, and we did that for 3 or 4 years. We built that business, and then we had the idea that we could launch a TV channel. We were still pretty young. I was 26, 27. And we spent about a year and a half looking for funding and raising capital, and eventually ended up partnering with Europe's biggest cable company and Liberty Media, the guys behind Formula One. Right. And we raised a chunk of capital from those guys, and then ended up launching the TV network, the Extreme Sports Channel, in over 60 plus countries. So we spent many years rolling that out. So it was amazing, very, very cool.
No, I mean, like I remember, the Extreme Sports Channel, back in the day, when people were actually scrolling TV.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely.
But yeah, no, it's so it always funny for me as like a young kid seeing that, and then kind of, here we are, I'm talking with you, behind it later. So that's pretty cool. It's really fun to see. And no, I mean, like I think it's always good to kind of talk a little about the story of how things comes to life, because oftentimes, people have great ideas, right? But they kind of, I'm gonna do it later, and maybe not gonna, execute it. Talk a bit about that. Just kind of, okay, well, let me actually go for it. Kind of like just putting that mindset into, okay, like why, and how you did it essentially.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a moment in time where, YouTube, internet, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook hadn't been born yet, and so we just saw there was a gap in the market. We were passionate about this area and wanted to launch a channel in this space, and so we were very young, lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm, and just went for it. And we worked super hard, but the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah.
And it and it was amazing. I mean, really amazing. So and then obviously we partnered up with these guys. We built the business plan. We did all the usual business bits and pieces, and then got on with literally launching the channel in country after country after country after country. So it was a really amazing initial part of the journey. It was fantastic.
So obviously, now it's been around for getting close to 30 years, something like that. Crazy.
Yep.
So what have been some key lessons you learned along the way, about the extreme sports industry, some things you've seen along the way, and just, being an entrepreneur, running a company for such a long time in a very, fast growing industry too?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the whole area, the whole sector has just grown, as more and more people have got into the lifestyle and just loving the outdoors and this side of things. And it's fantastic because it's obviously it's health driven, it's wellness, it's got so many positive attributes to it. And in fact, before COVID, the adventure sports space was was kind of one of the fastest growing segments from a tourism and activities perspective.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, it's just accelerated even more, right? So people wanting to get out of their houses, get away from electronics, and so we're just seeing this massive growth around this from a global perspective. And governments are starting to take it seriously because of the benefits tourism wise and for populations. So yeah, I mean, look, in terms of the lessons I've learned along the way, I mean, we could sit and talk a whole podcast, but I mean, I think so much of my learnings it's so about the people, right? So it's a people in the mix and the organization, and that's the if you get the idea, you give clarity, you put the framework around that, and you get the right people in play and in place, then that's just the absolute critical.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, I guess it's kind of interesting, and we're going to talk a little about some trends and stuff that you see, but when would you say was kind of like, I guess in a sense, a bit of a breaking point in terms of like the adventure extreme sport industry of really kind of, kicking off?
I don't think there's been a break point. I think there's just been a slow, steady push across all the different sports. It's just been grow. And listen, skateboarding had a moment where Tony Hawk launched, obviously, the skateboarding game that had a massive impact. So different sports, Olympics, the sports arriving in the Olympics gave kind of global prominence, put a spotlight on snowboarding, had a massive push at that point. So there've been certain moments in time which have really driven the growth in terms of the overall. But yeah, really in terms of, I don't think there's been like one moment which has really driven everything, because I think each of the sports and each, they all have their drivers to grow them and help grow them across boards. So yeah, very cool.
Well, I mean, like that's the best kind of growth, right? Which you can have that consistency, over time. That's really what brings the results at the end of the day.
Totally. And if you look at mainstream sports, golf, tennis, cricket, whatever, all those sports, they're all either slowly declining in terms of participation or they're flatlining. Whereas if you look at many of the adventure and extreme and action sports, they're all growing, and that's just driven, I think, by the lifestyle part, by digital media, there's just lots of factors that are driving that in terms of the overall.
So obviously talk a little about, today, the future, a little bit where we're going forward, like what changes, some upcoming plans do you have for the brand moving forward? And honestly, in this sense, I mean, like I looked a little bit up on what you guys were focusing on, a little bit on, did my research, right? So, obviously I saw, there's been some focus on sustainability, some UN goals. Talk a little bit about, where do you, and if there's anything else, of course, you want to add on, feel free to jump into that too. But what are some upcoming plans you have?
Yeah, so having built the TV channel business, we have then really, we sold the network 12 years ago and have really refocused the brand and the business around sort of three main business units. And our key main focus at the moment, number one lead point, is around building out hotels and resorts around the world. So adventure resorts, driven by, again, the growth in the activities and that side of things. And so really looking at where you can build adventure resorts on a large scale basis, that takes a lot of time. And then the other part that we're working is looking at hotels with the activity around, where we can find hotels, convert, refurb, and actually from a sustainability perspective, refurb them with a real drive to drive those buildings into sustainability.
Right.
And then build that chain out over time is number one, what we're doing. Number two is events, and driving that out and building out events across a number of different activities and different, very lifestyle driven festival, that type of thing, which is interesting. And on the events front, we launched an amazing event called the Extreme Hangout at COP in Glasgow 2 years ago, which is basically a conference to give young people a voice around the environment and young change makers. So it kind of crosses with adventure and outdoors and sustainability and environmental activists. That event, we're running our major event every year at COP. So the Glasgow, we did 11 days of conference, 260 speakers. We did 5 million video views. I mean, it was just 8,000 visitors, I think it was. And we just did the same in Egypt, in Sharm el Sheikh. And that event, we are running the major event every year within COP. And then we're partnering with tourism authorities and governments in different cities and sustainability and environmental activists in cities and on the ground to run their own mini 1 day, 2 day extreme hangouts. And similar to the TEDx model. So the way TEDx works is and so having run that for 2 years, we've now got 5 different cities and 5 different teams in 5 different cities that are going to be running that. PwC, the consultancy group, they just onboarded as our global sponsor on that, and we've got some really other amazing sponsor conversations going on. And so that's really starting to gather pace, which is, and obviously we broadcast everything. We bring in amazing speakers from all different walks of life, which has been it's been fantastic. So that's a big initiative on the event front that we're driving, and have got a fantastic team working around that. And then the third part of the business is media. So obviously, having been in the television business, we came out of that, and then we've really focused on digital media. And we are, driving those digital media platforms across all of them, and we're generating around between 250 million and 300 million video views a month, and that's predominantly short form. So that's 30-second, 1 minute, 3 minute videos. Some we're producing, some we're curating. Just depends on what's going on. But that is and that's across TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all the usual platforms. So so that, having come out of the TV, we're still working that space. So very cool.
You never get out of that space,
I think once you get media under your skin, it's and a fantastic team who are working that as well with us. So it's really cool.
But I mean, like, you gotta adapt, right? To the trend, to the industry where things are moving. I mean, like, it was just a natural progression, right, of like the media side of the company. So it makes a lot of sense. And since we're kind of jumping into the trends, what are some key trends you see in the in the sports adventure space, that you think and that you feel that the upcoming sport professionals should keep an eye out for? I mean, like, obviously there's a lot of young people here now, usually listening to this as well, and they're, trying to get their foot in the door. They're trying to kind of, okay, what should I keep an eye on? And sometimes, and this with media, you kind of like, you get hammered from all sides of the things. And from your side, like, what are some key trends that you've seen that you think and that they should focus on moving forward?
Look, we're obviously focused on adventure and that side of things. We're not working golf, cricket, tennis, football. That's not our space, etc. We, as I said, participation from grassroots, from kids and families, all the way through to the professionals in our space. We're just, as I said before, we're just seeing great growth, great passion, and the industry kind of works across obviously multiple areas, whether it's, the biggest part of it is obviously the equipment, the food, the equipment, the kit, the clothing, etc. From all the different brands, whether it's Patagonia, whether it's North Face, whether it's Quicksilver, Billabong, any of those guys. Through to Red Bull, the, amazing business that Red Bull is in terms of that food and drink space. And where it gets, also where we can see it heading is that health, wellness, athlete, connecting to nature. And that's the other thing amazing that we love around the area that we work, is the connection between our sports and nature is stronger than in a football or in some of these other mainstream ones, because people are, whether they're on a wave, whether in a mountain, or they are literally, it's embedded, which is amazing. And I think, the technology is the other thing, that crossover between tech and sport and that side, which is really, really interesting is in terms of trends that to watch for. But yeah, and I think in terms of, if people are trying to get a foot in the door, it's about, hustling to start with internships, get some time under the belt in whatever area, whether it's sales, marketing, support, whatever it is, and get your foot in the door, work it hard, and just hope it works out in terms of driving that. But it presents so many opportunities right now in terms of the industry. It's fantastic. It's really, really great.
And so, like, if you're obviously, a lot of people are trying to, break in. They're trying to get that internship or opportunity. And from like an adventure sports side of things, from your angle, where you guys are working, like, where are some, areas or sectors in the space that you see, okay, there's a higher demand or higher need for people? Where's that focus lying now for you guys?
Yeah, for us at the moment, it's listen, if I'm honest, it's across destinations, so hospitality, it's across the events side at the moment, having come out of COVID. That really took a hit with COVID.
I can imagine.
And then on the digital media side of things, it's content curators, it's content editors, it's people who understand this space, and we're working, especially on the digital media side, completely. We run a completely digital nomad strategy. So our team is based literally sprinkled all over the world, from Turkey to the Seychelles to Italy to America to South America to UK. So it's and I think if you've got those, we know that digital media is here, and if you've got some of those skill sets, then you can build out and work an opportunity for sure.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, like, it makes a lot of sense. It's always good to kind of like pit some pinpoints on it, so people kind of. But I'm glad to hear as well from your side that you see, okay, there's growth in potential, areas that you guys working on, and it's not just one area. People often tend to say, it's just digital marketing or sales, or so it's good to see that the variety, and especially on the event side too, that's really booming up. And I think if there's one thing I kind of like wanted to touch upon before we wrap up, is you talked something about just the nature side of things, right? Of how important part that plays in the sponsors, in the brands, in the influencers, in the marketing. Talk a little about that factor and why this is so important, because I think it's important for the students here to kind of wrap around. If they're brainstorming, they're thinking creativity, they're thinking ideas of like how can they kind of utilize that nature as a resource, and as a resource it really is.
I think, listen, on the high level, the world is facing the biggest challenge it's ever faced in terms of environmental sustainability. No two ways about it, right? So, from our side of things, what we've done is we obviously, we signed up for 1% for the planet. We signed up for Planet Mark to measure what we're doing. We brought on a head of sustainability and environment permanent post, and we signed up. We're working with the UN, obviously their sustainability goals, but the UN Sports for Climate Action movement. So we really drilled. We as an organization were like, right, we've got to get our act together, whether it's personally at home or on the work front. So we kind of activated that at a ground root basis, and then we obviously went further. We've launched this thing, as I mentioned earlier, called the Extreme Hangout, and I think the sustainability side and the nature side of things is just, it is the biggest thing we're ever faced from a planetary perspective. And so the uptake and the drive from a corporate perspective, I think the is there, right? And so it has to be driven, right? And we drive that through any partner we're working with, any supplier we're working with. We are continuously trying to push ourselves, but also trying to influence and drive that thinking with them as well, in terms of whether you're building something, whether you're doing something, whatever it is, it's using those best sustainability practices that you can possibly apply to all the different areas, right? So, and that cross between adventure, nature, and sustainability and environment is, for us, is just critical and key, right? And With anything like this, you know, it's a movement, and you know, you have to fuel it. And I think, you know, young people, obviously led by Greta Thunberg, have kind of started to make a lot of noise, and I think there is opportunities in different areas to make noise, you know, from wherever. So yeah, it's one of the things we're also trying to do is popularize the climate conversation. So at the moment it can be very polarizing, right? And I think you know, I think women are far more in tune with it, if I'm really honest. Men, we have slight more tunnel vision, but especially in the elder men. But I think it's listen, it's an extraordinary moment in time. I wanted to make sure that, you know, I didn't look back and go, oh, we just sat there and did nothing. We wanted to really make sure we did some, you know, we did something as much as we possibly could, and hence the moves we're making. So yeah, that's awesome. That's where I, you know, yeah, hopefully helpful.
No, absolutely. Well, with that, Alistair, I would like to, you know, thank you so much for taking the time. You know, it's been a pleasure having you part of the podcast, and for you sharing your stories and insights with our audience. And I have it's like a, you know, Sporting Global podcast tradition at this point. You know, so we ask every guest, or I teach every guest a little bit Norwegian. You know, it's a nice little fun thing we do at the end. So.
Tusen takk.
Yeah, you know some Norwegian already, but I'm gonna teach you something else. I'm gonna teach you something else though. So with every video we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means "see you later" in Norwegian. So that's what you have to say.
Vi snakkes. I love it. I love it. And vi snakkes and tusen takk, right?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alistair. Have a good one. And for those of you that have been there all the way at the end, make sure to like the video, subscribe as well, so you get, you know, weekly tips every week from leaders like Alistair. Sign up at sportingglobal.com for free, and check out the amazing courses we have at academy.sportingglobal.com, so you can learn how to get your foot in the door, learn from some of the best organizations, and as always, vi snakkes. All right. Thank you so much, Alistair.
Thank you very much. Go well, everybody.